For this next chart, we are going to look at this portrayal of Federal Reserve flow of funds data as produced by calculatedriskblog.com. And this chart is about total household net worth as a percent of GDP. This is a US-only chart, but it's safe to say that other major economies are experiencing something similar because they're all printing money. And the important part of this chart is this as a percent of GDP portion, because both the numerator and the denominator both account for whatever inflation has occurred and therefore cancel each other out. That's why this chart is not a byproduct of inflation. It is net of inflation. And even though I just explained that, there's always going to be someone who says, oh, this is just because of the hyperinflation that we've had for 60 years or whatever. That is completely wrong, and such a person does not know what they're talking about. This is total household net worth as a percent of GDP. This horizontal axis signifies the progress of time from 1952 to present. This vertical axis is household net worth as a percent of GDP, and as you can see, for about 35 years from 1952 until the late 1980s, there was no real progress in this metric. This was a decent number in an absolute sense, but prosperity in terms of net worth was not rising. Then it began to rise. And as we got into more of a high-tech age, it began to rise a bit further. This was a distortion caused by the housing bust. This is due to the incompetence of the U.S. Federal Reserve in drastically lowering interest rates, inflating the housing market, and then raising interest rates so as to cause a housing bust from those inflated levels. They did two wrong things. The best thing would have been to do nothing at all and just gradually lower rates as technological deflation took hold, but then they lower it very fast and then raise it again too fast, almost as though creating a housing bust and making people bankrupt was deliberate. And then we get to the age of quantitative easing, 2009 onwards, and you see this sharper and sharper rise in net worth. We're almost getting to a parabolic curve. And the net worth increase in total dollars is much higher than depicted on this chart because this is, again, divided by GDP as a percent of GDP. The fact that we have gone from 400% to 600% is extremely good. Even the misguided tightening that the Federal Reserve is doing, while that has caused a decline, it can't go much lower than this because the markets won't let it. So net worth is rising because we're in an age of technological deflation. Now, as I've explained elsewhere on this channel, the Federal Reserve and other central banks of the world print money in a manner that increases the net worth of only the richest people. It does not go to the bottom 90% of people, and therefore a far more granular and diffuse manner of money printing would be to send that cash directly to people rather than simply buying mortgage-backed securities and treasuries. And also simultaneously start offsetting income tax with Federal Reserve money printing so that the tax rate on humans becomes less and less through a monetization of technological deflation. I have many videos on this channel talking about that, but for the purposes of this Data University series, this chart really tells us that this is a cause to be optimistic. The worst problem is that net worth is too concentrated, and that's a very artificial problem caused by the Federal Reserve. But money printing is translating into net worth, and in fact very substantial gains in net worth, as a percent of GDP. Inflation cannot be discussed in this chart at all because inflation is canceled out by being in both the numerator and the denominator. And if you don't understand that, you need to think about that before you watch more advanced videos on this channel. Total household net worth as a percent of GDP is rising, and by the 2030s, it's going to be very high. Let's say we're 700 to 800% by then. That is creating a new prosperity because it is creating a new paradigm of household net worth. And while pessimism sells in the economics of social media, which has dominated all news media, this is a strong argument for optimism and how you're fortunate to be born in the modern age. Thanks for watching.